Hey, everybody. We're about to get started on the Aging Insight Radio show. Hope you enjoy it. And if you've got any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments below.
Yeah.
We will answer them if we can get around to all of them. So
we'll answer them. We'll, make up stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, one way or the other, though. Yeah. All right, so here's the opening intro music.
This is a live call-in program featuring John Ross and Lisa Schollmeyer, elder law attorneys and senior advocates for the Art Latex. Aging Insight is dedicated to
We're just
helping
going to
you
cover a whole lot of little things today.
The blessing of growing older. So call in and ask your questions. The number is 903-793-1071.
All right, here we go.
Here are your hosts, John Ross and Lisa Schollmeyer.
Welcome to Aging Insight, everybody. This is your host, John Ross, here live in the studio. We are live on this June the 8th, 2019, one day after National Donut Day.
Yes, it was National Donut Day yesterday, and I did partake in some donuts.
Yeah, I didn't.
Think you missed out.
I didn't get a chance. I missed out on the donuts.
Well, I had to celebrate. It was a national holiday.
That's right.
So,
yeah. And there's a little history behind that, isn't there?
Well, that's right. Because, and of course, Thursday, June 6th, was the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Right.
So, D-Day and donuts and military and all, and donuts kind of go together. National Donut Day was actually started after World War I when, as a celebration of the donut girls that the Salvation Army sent out into the front in World War I, where these ladies were sent out with basically shortening, flour, sugar, and oil.
Yeah.
And they were sent out onto the front lines, and they were just to bring a little cheer to the military guys fighting those battles. And they would they would mix up the dough and fry up donuts in a helmet that they had poured oil into and were heating over the fire.
Right.
And they'd fry up. And they said you could get 7 donuts into one helmet. So I've never tested that theory. But anyway, these donut girls were certainly a ray of sunshine to those guys on the front. Obviously, they didn't forget it. And National Donut Day was started, I believe, in the 1930s to kind of remember and celebrate those ladies who were out there on the front serving up donuts. And they actually sent donut girls out during World War II as well. So, do what you can to make morale. I mean, sweet fried dough and a lady in your midst is a pretty good morale booster.
That's right. And it's interesting because I didn't really know any of this until you told me about it here just in the last couple of days. But it's interesting how people just don't have any idea. It actually is a real holiday.
Yes.
It's not just some little kitschy thing that Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme came up with.
Although if they did, who could blame them?
Right. But it's kind of neat. And I was over at the Senior Expo on Friday, giving a talk on the basics of estate planning over there. And I opened it up by asking if anybody knew the history behind National Donut Day. And it's a room full of people, and nobody knew.
Well, there you go. So now we talked to a room full of people and the airwaves full of people and maybe the whole wide world based on being on Facebook Live.
Yeah, and of course we are on Facebook Live. So if you're listening to us live on the radio on 107.1, that's great. If you're interested, you can always get on Facebook, go to the Ross and Schollmeyer Facebook page and check out our Facebook Live program. Good thing about that is if there's something that you caught during today, maybe a little piece of information you want to share with a friend or something like that, the video of Aging Insight is saved on the Facebook page. You can go back and watch past videos of all of these programs.
That's right. So, of course, for our radio listeners, we have sponsors that help us stay on the air. And just want to give a shout out to those sponsors, the Calhoun Creek Estates, Reunion Plaza and Edgewood Manor, the Barnett Agency, Red River Federal Credit Union, Texarkana Funeral Home, Dirksen Hospice. All right, John.
Hospice of Texarkana.
Hospice of Texarkana, that's right. And
Let's see. Did you get the Barnetts?
I got the Barnetts,
Okay.
and I can't forget the Barnetts.
No, you can't forget the Barnetts.
Yeah, I saw a lot of these folks out at the Senior Expo on Friday.
Yeah, in fact, I think just about all of them were out there. So anyway, we appreciate all of our sponsors, and of course, there's links to all of those on the Facebook Live video. And always encourage anybody, if you are watching the video, you get something out of it. Feel free at some point, and now or later, click through and leave them a message and tell them how much you appreciate them keeping us on the air.
Right. So here we are on Aging Insight, where John Ross and myself, Lisa Schulmeyer, elder law attorneys, we come into the station on Saturdays. And, John, we've had several people this week. They always tell us, "Oh, listen to your show, and that was a great story," or they will tell us a similar situation that happened in their family from one of our stories. And we prepare for the radio show. We research cases, we look at different topics. But today, what we wanted to do was just some little things have been popping up in our practice as elder law attorneys.
Not necessarily something we could spend the whole day talking about, but yeah, some little things that we thought we would address. And it also seemed like a pretty good opportunity to just throw it out to all the listeners and say, hey, if there's been some question that you've wanted an answer to, if you've been too afraid to reach out for some reason, well, feel free to give us a call. You can call us live on the radio. It's 903-793-1071. You do need to call during the actual show. You can't call during the breaks.
Yes.
You can't be shy and call during the break. You got to call during the show.
Yeah, if you're shy, you could write your comment or your question get on Facebook and write that on our show page, and we can. If you don't want to hear your voice on the radio. That's right.
and since that's kind of where we're going with it, we actually already have one comment on the Facebook, one question on here, and I'll just read this, but basically the commenter here is saying that her mom has some early stages of dementia. Still able to make decisions, so still competent.
Right. Just because you have a diagnosis of dementia does not mean that you lack legal capacity.
That's right.
And
that's right. And she says, I have a power of attorney, but I understand I also need a financial power of attorney. So I'm assuming when she says she has a power of attorney, probably talking about like a medical.
Yeah, that'd be my assumption.
But she says she also needs she needs a financial power of attorney. She also has been told that we need an affidavit of heirship for the deceased spouse that's still on the deed.
Okay, so her mom's a widow, single widow. Okay.
And a ladybird deed to protect the house in case she goes to a nursing home. Her question is, they're tight on money, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, I get that. Tight on money. I see stuff online, downloadable forms, stuff like that. Can we safely / legally do any of these forms ourselves?
Okay, and so I think she's talking about financial power of attorney. I think she's talking about the affidavit of heirship, and then talking about a ladybird deed. Those seem to be the forms or documents that she's asking about.
That's right. Well, so let me just kind of generally answer your questions here on a couple of things. So yes, I agree. Everybody should have a financial power of attorney, or what I call a financial power of attorney, which is often referred to as a general durable power of attorney. But this is the one that is attempting to encompass all of the business type decisions that might need to be made for a person if they become incapacitated. The problem is you don't know what decisions are going to need to be made. So that power of attorney's got to be extremely expansive to cover not just the ordinary stuff like paying bills and things like that, but it needs to give the person the power to do the kind of asset protection planning. She's clearly worried that hey, somebody might have to go to a nursing home. If that's the case, you're going to need to be able to access statements from various accounts and deal with pensions and whatever else is out there. You also may need the power to move some of those things around.
Yeah, that's right. And that's always been a challenge. If someone has to go to a nursing facility, that cost runs 5,000 plus a month.
Yep.
And so a lot of people look to apply for Medicaid to cover that cost, but you've got to have access, number one, to all of the financial records to be able to prove whether or not you qualify for Medicaid assistance. But sometimes, based on the patient's financial arrangements, things do have to be moved around. And so if the patient cannot do that themselves, then an agent under a power of attorney will have to make those adjustments. And, the power of attorney better be very specific as to the authority of that agent to make those adjustments. So
let me just kind of point out here. So the short answer to your question is, are there downloadable forms for this stuff? Sure. In fact, in both Arkansas and Texas, they have what they call the statutory power of attorney, which is the one that the legislators came up with,
right,
as a way to try to make it easy for people to do a power of attorney.
to access those type of forms.
And so typically, like if you were to get on the internet and type in Texas General Durable Power of Attorney, what you're going to come up with is typically some version of the statutory power of attorney that the legislator came up with. I cannot tell you how many, and the reason we tell people to have powers of attorney is because the alternative, if you don't have access to what you need to do because the power of attorney is wrong or it doesn't give you the authority, the alternative to that is guardianship.
Right.
A simple, easy, uncontested guardianship is going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Right. So,
they're
that's
giant,
an issue.
Right. So to your question here, could you pull up a statutory power of attorney for free off the internet, get it executed, and would that give you the power to do most things? Yes, no question about it.
Right.
If you're wrong and there's something that you need to do that's not covered by that statutory power of attorney, if you can't get some access to something because the people you're dealing with will not honor that statutory power of attorney, or if you execute it incorrectly, then you're going to be going back to the guardianship. So what was free on the front end ends up costing $5,000-$6,000 on the back end because it's wrong. And I have done a lot of guardianships over the years for people who have powers of attorney in place. It's just that they're wrong.
Right. And I was going to comment on that, John, because the statutory powers of attorney that you'll see online, they have a list, kind of a laundry list of powers, and you can initial, and there's several different places you can initial. And John, I can't tell you how many times I've seen where it wasn't initialed properly, and simply the failure to initial a line that was necessary. Just 3 little letters that should have been in that line that weren't there.
Yeah, it causes a catastrophe. Yeah.
And so it's a pretty simple enough looking form, but the substance of what you're actually doing, if you may not really comprehend.
Right.
And it can be very confusing about where you're supposed to initial and where you're not supposed to initial to get the best use out of that form. So I know it sounds completely self-serving when we say that, yes, is the form out there? Absolutely. Have we seen things go perfectly smoothly with a downloaded form? Yes. But John, probably I would say we see the train wrecks.
That's true.
So we're probably a little more attuned to that.
Yeah, we're going to be overly paranoid because we do see the problems.
And so, and frankly, getting the right powers of attorney done, yes, is there some cost involved in doing it? Yes, but it shouldn't be exorbitant. I mean, it should be a few $100. Right. Which I know when money's tight, that's still a big deal. But compared to $5,000 a month out of pocket for nursing facility care, or thousands of dollars out of pocket for a guardianship proceeding, so you can get the authority to do what you need to do, $200-$300 is a bargain.
Yeah. Now that's on the power of attorney,
Yes.
which is one thing. The other was you were talking about asking about a ladybird deed, which the ladybird deed is a way that a person can stay in possession of their own home and still transfer that assets outside of the probate process, and people will do this type of deed for basically two reasons. One, because if it's done correctly, it'll have no effect on Medicaid eligibility on the front end if you go to the nursing home. And two,
If it's done correctly.
Then on the back end, Medicaid will not be able to file a claim against that house, and you'll preserve the value of that home on the back end so that it goes to the heirs instead of having to be sold and all of that money given to the state. Now what you're talking about is protecting an asset.
Yeah, probably a very
Probably an expensive asset.
probably one of the most valuable assets this lady may have.
Right. So let me ask you this from this standpoint: do you pay for homeowners insurance? How much do you pay for the homeowners insurance? And which do you think is more likely, the home burning down or the owner of the home needing something like nursing home care and then dying? Because for most people, the likelihood of you needing some sort of long-term care, about 80 or 90%. Chances of you having a house fire are like 5%.
Right. And dying, last I checked, is 100%.
So if you're talking about the ladybird deed as probably the insurance policy that's going to protect the entire value of that house that's worth $50, $75, $100, $150,000, would you spend more or less on that than you would on the homeowner's insurance?
Yeah.
And again, it's not that they're necessarily super expensive things.
$100 again.
But that's definitely not something you want to try to do on your own. Getting something. In fact, don't even let another lawyer do it unless they absolutely know what they're doing. Ask them, how many times have you presented this deed that you're proposing to a Medicaid caseworker and dealt with them over whether or not this works?
And presented that deed to a Medicaid caseworker who's trying to collect thousands of dollars from your mom's estate.
That's right.
And that deed being successful in defeating that claim.
Yep.
So.
All right, we got to take a quick break for in fact, we're a little late for the break. So stick around, we'll be right back. And we're still live on radio. We just got to take our little news or a little commercial break. But anyway, so Charlotte there, we hate to give you the lawyer answer of, meh, but I would just understand what your risks are, right? Yes, you can get a free power of attorney off the internet. Yes, it'll probably do most of what you need it to do. There's a small chance in there that it will not. And if it's done incorrectly, the cost to you and to your mom are going to be severe. And they're going to catastrophically outweigh what you've tried to save on the front end.
Yeah.
The same thing goes with the ladybird deed. Presumably we're talking about a house that's worth has some value anyway, and so that's really probably not something you want to play around with.
Especially a lot of times, John, these type cases, there's an heir or a beneficiary or an adult child of the parent who often lives in that home after that parent passes away. And so sometimes that ladybird deed is even preserving the home place for that beneficiary who's now going to live there.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to have even general practice attorneys who have the legal training to practice law. They've passed the bar exam, but for them to mess up the execution of powers of attorneys, for them to draft them incorrectly when it comes to long-term care, for them to draft a ladybird deed incorrectly because they're not keeping up with the constantly changing Medicaid provisions and
what the deed, exactly what the deed has to say in the wording in order to defeat a lien from Medicaid. So it really is, what do you will, it's weighing the cost benefit. So scraping together the money to get good legal documents gives you peace of mind, first of all, and second of all, the right documents are going to carry you through. So it certainly can be a sacrifice to get those done and pay for those, but I think you'd be surprised at how affordable they really are compared to the value you're protecting. So
absolutely. Yeah, and I will say that we do a lot of programs on these sort of things, speeches out in the community on powers of attorney, on ladybird deeds and stuff like that. And part of the reason we do those speeches is because we know that there's a category of people out there that are still going to try to do it themselves,
sure.
right? And so if you do ultimately decide to do it yourself, I would encourage you to attend as many of our programs as you can, listen to the radio show and things like that, because you'll pick up on little things that you can go back and look at what you've got in place and figure out if you did it right or wrong or anyway. So anyway, appreciate you adding that comment there. Here we go.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Aging Insight. And today, I'm Lisa Schulmeyer. I don't know if I said that yet. And I'm here with John Ross. And today, we're just kind of doing a little just questions and things that have popped up, questions from, the public, questions that we've seen answered or that our clients have asked. And so today, we're just in a little bit of lagniappe. A little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of lagniappe, and we also want to be able to respond to anything. Lisa and I get up. We'll get up on a Saturday morning, and we'll try to decide. What is it we want to talk about today? And we think of things that we find interesting, but that doesn't necessarily make it informative to you. That if you've got that burning question, get on the phone, 903-793-1071. You can call us, or even better, get on Facebook and you can
comment your question.
Yeah, you can comment your question.
I like that. Comment your question.
Comment your question.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well,
and we've just had a few people that just have been saying, they're just happy to see us on here. So.
Well, John, one thing that came up this week, and it's not the first time this has come up. So since we're on our little short segment here before we go to our bottom of the hour news break, I wanted to bring this up. A lot of people in our area, we live in a kind of a rural-ish area, I guess you'd say, and certainly our practice, our elder law practice, covers everything from all the way out to El Dorado, over to El Dorado, Arkansas, Paris, Texas, Arkadelphia, Nashville, Arkansas, down to Longview, Tyler, Palestine. I mean,
I was in Athens this last week.
Yeah, so we cover a big area. One thing I see very commonly that turns to a big, huge disaster every single time is a lot of our folks keep they have gun safes in their homes where they are responsible gun owners, and they keep their guns and all locked up in the gun safe. But the other thing they keep in there, John, is a bunch of cash.
Yes.
Lots of cash. And when the owner of that home and that gun safe dies, somehow that cash and often the guns completely disappear.
Yes.
Had a client this week, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash gone from Dad's gun safe.
Yeah.
So, we'll revisit this a little bit.
Yeah,
after the break,
we're gonna have to cover a little more of this when we come back from the break. But people do hoard some cash, and they do. And of course, sometimes they just do dumb things like go pull all their money out and put it in cash.
Right. But yeah, so after the news break, we're going to talk about guns and cash.
That's right.
And some of the issues we've seen come up with that.
As well as answer any more of your questions. So
right.
Stick around. We'll be right back. All right. And of course, we're still live. And did have a comment on here from Rose saying, to enjoying the broadcast, saw and spoke with you at Legacy Town Creek in Palestine.
Yeah.
Come back soon. And so I did want to tell Rose, we will be back in Palestine soon. I believe I am speaking in Palestine at our law school lunch That will be on Tuesday, June 25th, so a little bit later this month. It'll be back over there at the Gathering Place at Legacy.
Okay.
Free meal like usual. So show up, come hang out, and and the topic is going to be Save My House.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so that'll be a good one. I'm going to talk about the different ways. We kind of opened the show talking about ladybird deeds. That's one way to do it. There's pros and cons with it, but there are several other ways to protect what in many cases is somebody's most valuable asset, and that's that house. So that's going to be my topic on June 25th at 12 o'clock at the Gathering Place at Legacy. They're in Palestine.
Yeah, that's a Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. And they did make me an afternoon appointment, which kind of makes me mad because I would probably rather go have me a hamburger over.
Over what is that?
Is it the Craft and
Is the Craft and Barrel
or something like that in Palestine? Great burgers, and they got these blue cheese fries.
Yeah, I was about to say I'll skip the burgers, so I have plenty of room for the blue cheese fries.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. If there was a show on, and I don't know if it's still on, John. It was called Texas Country Reporter.
Uh-huh.
I think if we could do an East Texas version.
We could, absolutely, because I'm in all of these little towns. I know where to eat. It's awesome. Oh, that's our commercial. That's not us coming back in.
No.
I thought.
I was wondering what you were doing.
Yeah, I thought we were coming back in.
Yeah, so Paris, Texas, Sulphur Springs, Greenville. I mean, we got you covered. If there's a place to eat,
yeah,
we can find it.
Yep. Yeah, I know all the little holes in the wall and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, that's the thing about rolling around the countryside. So, but yeah, hopefully you'll come out to Palestine and bring your friends. That'll be a good one. That's often one of our most popular topics is on how to protect the house, and one that I think a lot of people are interested in, don't know anything about.
Right. And they just heard things in the past or heard things from friends and
kind of like the questioner saying, I've heard that we need to get a ladybird deed. Maybe.
Right. Yeah, because there's alternatives to a ladybird deed that apply in some family situations that are actually better than a ladybird deed. So, I hate when we give lawyer answers so much, but it really is the tools that we have as elder law attorneys. We have to fit them to the facts and circumstances of each family situation, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, look, she's gonna come and see me on June 25th. That is a haul though, driving all the way down to Palestine.
It is.
But that's all right. I don't mind. I drove all the way to Athens. I can drive all the way to Palestine.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna be coming in later.
Later in the year.
And later in the fall, and I'll be coming out and get to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching the radio show, except live and in person.
That's right.
That's like our tour. We need tour shirts. All of our dates on the back, kind of like the old rock and roll concert shirts.
Yeah, because
maybe.
Maybe
not.
Yeah. Different style groupies.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, people don't know. I did a little rock and roll back in the day.
Yeah.
A little late 80s.
Well, you might bring out the house if you busted out some of that.
Oh, I am. Well, I don't have the look anymore.
Yeah, just gotta have the right attitude.
The Marine Corps wouldn't let me keep the long hair.
Well.
All right, we got about 20 seconds. Appreciate y'all sticking with us through the Fox News break. That's what all the radio people are listening to.
Instead, you get our banter.
Yeah, you just get us doing this for 5 minutes while they play the news. Yeah. So, all right, here we go. Couple of seconds.
Have a question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now, back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
Welcome back to Aging Insight, everybody. You were about to jump in.
I was.
I always come in.
I know, but I was getting ready to get back on my topic.
You were.
So I'm fired up.
That's right, and because you did have a good topic, and this is the big stack of cash.
Yes, and we've done a whole episode on cash, but this just came up again this past week, and I had a family who, dad died unexpectedly.
Mhm.
Okay, so actually in an accident of all
Right.
things.
Yeah. Let's be clear. You don't get to pick when you die.
Right. And so, but I've had other cases where there was a bunch of cash in the gun safe where the senior was quite ill.
Yep.
So it wasn't necessarily an unexpected situation, but in more often than not, cash, guns, things like that turn up missing.
Yes.
And
They have a tendency to grow legs and walk away.
And often, like in the most recent case, situation where dad, this was his, I don't know, second, third, fourth marriage,
Right.
and but he'd been married for quite a while to this lady, but this lady was not the mother of his children, of the deceased children,
Right.
and the deceased children knew dad. When he had shared with them, have got all this cash in here. In fact, one of the children had even stored some of his own guns in dad's gun safe. Apparently, it was quite roomy. And they said dad had their allegation is hundreds of thousands of dollars in the gun safe. And I think dad had been a tradesman, construction kind of person.
Yeah.
And,
Maybe got paid in cash.
Maybe got paid
on
cash
occasion.
for his whole career and had, instead of putting it in the bank, had stuffed it in that safe. Anyway, dad dies unexpectedly. Even the day, the kids are at the house with the stepmom, and the son he's asked, "Hey, I need to get my guns out of dad's gun safe." Stepmom refused to open the safe,
Mm-hmm.
and this now been quite some time has passed, but of course, there's no guns, there's no cash.
Right. Everything's gone.
Everything's gone, and all the kids are like, well, dad said he wanted it this way, that way, or the other, but it's gone. Yeah. And are there some things legally that could possibly be done? Yes, but they're not good things. I mean,
right.
Cash is by definition, I'm sure the reason dad had all that cash in there was because he
basically untraceable.
The government couldn't get their grimy paws on it. That might have been his thought process. But now his kids, who he meant to leave some portion of it or a large portion of it to, they don't get it either.
That's right.
Because it is gone. So I guess this story.
And I'm not necessarily saying, we're not saying.
Yeah, we're not saying don't keep some cash around.
Don't keep some cash. You want to keep some cash around, that's fine. Just understand that whatever cash you keep around, something's going to happen to it that you didn't intend.
Right.
So with that in mind, just assume that that's what's going to happen. Don't assume, oh, well, I know that my Uncle Timmy is going to come in and he'll handle everything, and because that's the kind of guy he is. But I don't want to hear any of that. Assume that it's going to be gone.
Yes.
And so with that knowledge now, how much do you want to keep in there?
Right.
And if you're comfortable with a couple of thousand, great. You're comfortable with 20,000, great. Whatever. But just understand that's a lot of temptation sitting there. We've had where a kid, while his mom was at the hospital, the kid with the assistance of a safecracker.
Yeah, no, called a locksmith and a safecracker, and while mom was in ICU at the hospital, entered her home, and he didn't have the combination or the key to the gun safe, but got into it and removed everything, because problem in that case, John, is that mom recovered and found out what son did.
Yeah.
So that was a big issue. But
I was just reading another case this morning about a young man who had been appointed as mom's power of attorney. He was an upstanding kid. He had a good job. Everything was fine. The problem was when at around the same time mom had become incapacitated, and very well may have been because of the strain of being that caregiver child to mom, his marriage started to deteriorate.
Yes.
He lost his job. His marriage is going down the tank.
His mom's sick. Well, if he could use mom's assets to provide a great lifestyle for his wife and kids, maybe they'd stick around.
which is exactly what he did, to the tune of about $400,000 over the course of a couple of years. And now he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
Yeah. Well,
they've just convicted him. This was in Kentucky. And so, anyway.
Just if you're going to keep cash around, just be wise about it and assume that what you intend to happen to it is not what's going to happen to it if for some reason you weren't there to supervise it. It's I've just had too many cases, especially, John, I see this more in the more rural areas where people just keep a lot of cash. I would suggest, if you want to keep cash, and go get a safety deposit box at the bank. The bank doesn't know what you put in your safety deposit box. So if you've got a bunch of cash and you want to make sure that just your kids get the cash, but you don't want to tell anybody, you don't want the government, whatever, and I'm assuming, of course, that anyone who's listening has reported any and all cash compensation they have ever received
to the relevant taxable authority.
That's right, to the proper tax authorities. But if you're just the kind of person that prefers cash over various bank accounts, if you have a safety deposit box and you put the cash in there and you put your name first, but then you put your contingent owner beneficiaries on the agreement for that box, that means if you got 3 kids and you intend for your 3 kids to split any cash, then you put those 3 kids on that box, and all 3 of them will need to be there to open that box. So there won't be any question.
That's right.
About Bubba's taking too much or Sissy taking too much. But if you've got a blended family, or if you just have people in your family, John, people, a gun safe full of cash is never going to work out the way you think it will.
It's just
so okay.
And one other thing.
Box is over.
Well, and one other thing, while we're talking about cash, I mentioned that I was over at the Senior Expo on Friday, and I got there about an hour and a half early, and I walked around and visited. And of course, I saw lots of folks that watched the show or listened to the show, or prior clients. I saw lots of people that I know there. But I had one person come up to me. And he was talking about how I think it was a mother-in-law or something like that is at the nursing home, and they were talking to the nursing home people, and nursing home people said, well, for her to qualify for Medicaid, she can't have any more than $2,000. So they had just gone and pulled out all of her money in cash.
Okay.
And then they were somewhat surprised when Medicaid did not pay for them.
Yeah. See, Medicaid likes to look at your bank statements, and they look at your financial statement history. So they get 3-6 months worth of your bank statement. So if there's been a recent withdrawal of a lot of cash, they would like to know what happened to it.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's like I understand the government does a lot of dumb things, but that doesn't necessarily make them stupid. And so if you've got $2,000 in your checking account and you're like, oh well, hey, we pulled out all of this money 6 months ago, and they're only going to ask for the last 3 months worth of bank statements, so we ain't got to tell them nothing.
Very nice,
right? We ain't got to tell them anything. The thing is that they can also look at your tax returns. Yeah, they can look at all kinds of stuff, and so
they've got databases. They plug in the Social Security number.
And so, why did the person have thousands of dollars worth of interest income in the last 12 months, but no, they've got no cash? These things just don't make any sense. They know this. There are ways to protect your assets
within the rules prescribed. Yes.
But doing stuff like pulling everything out in cash
and then saying, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not going to work.
And the fact is, you pull all of that out in cash, and then you go throw it in a gun safe, and guess what? Something else is going to happen to it. Yeah. So all of that stuff kind of ties together. All right. We're going to take one more break, and we're going to talk about an awfully cute little puppy.
Yes.
I have a picture. We're going to show you the picture if you're on the Facebook Live. So if you're listening live on the radio, better get on the Facebook there if you want to see the picture of the puppy that we're going to talk about right after the break. So stick around. We'll be right back. Yeah, the cash thing. And the thing is I mean, I keep a little cash around. Everybody keeps a little cash around. My grandfather kept too much cash around. He walked around and he had a one of these
a wad.
Yeah. And of course, a bunch of them were hundreds. And of course I'm thinking, okay, 90-year-old guy wandering around with a wad of cash.
Yeah, just wait for somebody to knock him down and pilfer his pockets.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, if you want to keep some cash around, it's fine. Just understand that something's gonna happen to it. It's gonna walk off.
Well, even from, like you talk about your grandfather, I mean, we've had clients who, have been hospitalized or, and they've had cash on them. I mean, their cash, their ID, their, disappear, between ambulance, emergency room, transfers to hospital rooms, transfers to rehab, that happens. Although it's not uncommon, a lot of our older generation clients definitely feel more comfortable having a bit of cash in their pocket. I think the younger generation, I don't even know if they can count out cash.
Probably not.
So it's a little different.
They don't know who those old people are on the bills.
Right. Yeah. Do the old Jay Leno walking around and show them a $5 bill and see who's on there.
Yeah. So yeah, watch out for the cash. And look, I mean, the thing is, there are ways to qualify for Medicaid. It's what we do. We know all the ways. You don't know all the ways, so don't just think, you can pull one over on them. They're not. They've done this lots and lots of times. I guarantee the Medicaid caseworker has done more Medicaid applications than you have.
Right. Or any of your friends collectively put together.
That's right. And they've seen all of those tricks. Yeah. Oh, well, we sold it for $1. That doesn't know. They get that. They understand all of that stuff. You haven't come up with anything new yet. So it's just so much easier to follow the rules and protect those assets within the rules. And frankly, it makes you feel better at the end of the day because you can be above board.
That's right.
You're not trying to hide something.
Right.
You're not wondering when
are they going to figure it out?
Yeah, what the consequences are going to be.
For defrauding.
Yeah.
Government. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that.
That's right. All right, we got 10 seconds, and then we'll be back live on the radio for our last segment. So if you do have any questions, now you better get them in.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Question? Phone 903-793-1071. Now back to Aging Insight with John and Lisa.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is Lisa Schollmeyer. I'm here with John Ross. Today we're just kind of jumping around, covering a bit different little things that just kind of been on our minds. So
as you would say, some lagniappe.
Some lagniappe, that's right. That's just a little extra spice, a little extra something for our listeners. But so we talked about the cash issue. We talked about some different documents and all. Well, now I had seen a story in the news recently, and it's not the first time I've seen a story like this, but it involved the cutest little Shih Tzu puppy dog.
That's right.
And the dog's name is Emma. Emma, and with her smushy little face and her, her fur that comes down, just precious. Kind of a little black and white looking little Shih Tzu.
Yeah, it's got kind of black hair, and then it's got this white chin, kind of like your co-host.
Yeah, that's true. Well, luckily, I'm not going to do to you what was done to precious Emma here. Emma with her little overbite, as Shih Tzus tend to have.
Yes.
But Emma was very pampered as a Shih Tzu. But when her owner died, her owner requested that Emma be put down and euthanized, and then cremated and her ashes buried with the owner. And John, we've actually talked about this before.
Yeah,
but
we have.
this story came up just toward the end of May. It was featured in People magazine,
Of all things.
and they were talking about the ethics and in this particular case, I think the reason it became such an issue is the owner and Emma lived in Virginia, and when the owner died, apparently the executor, who was not a dog person, immediately whisked Emma the Shih Tzu, who was only 2 years old, by the way, so it's very young.
And those are dogs that'll live forever.
20 years, yeah. So anyway, the owner turned over, or excuse me, the executor turned over the Shih Tzu to the Humane Society to hold. And while the executor tried to figure out how to carry out the wishes of the deceased as far as euthanizing the dog. Anyway, apparently this was a Humane Society in Virginia, and they kept trying to talk the executor out of euthanizing the dog. They were like, oh, this dog would be so easy to rehome. She's young, she's a house pet, she's small, easy breezy. Well, eventually, a couple of weeks in, the executor returned to the Humane Society, picked up the dog, took the dog to a local veterinarian, and had the dog euthanized.
So, yep, there goes Emma.
There was a big outcry from the Humane Society type people about, putting down a perfectly healthy animal. And, the bottom line is animals are property, just like your couch, just like your car. And in a will, you can distribute or have, property, anything you want.
Yeah, you can dictate what happens to your property. That's the whole kind of purpose of
a will.
Of a will.
I have done plenty of wills where the testator says, sell everything and give the cash to charity, or sell everything. I don't want my kids fighting over stuff. I want my executor to sell it all, divide the money. Or they've been very specific about, placing each asset with particular beneficiary. Well, in this case, the owner said, euthanize the dog and bury her with me. A similar case just recently came up in England. And so, John, I guess the reason I want to talk about this is, let's think about this. Your dog is certainly your property. That's the way the law looks at it. A lot of people think the reason they do this, because I actually have a client that has this same provision in her documents.
Yep.
A lot of reason people do this is they say the animal will never be cared for like I have cared for this animal.
Right.
And so I don't want the animal to, quote, suffer by a substandard level of care than what I have provided to this animal. And when I die, I just can't even bear the thought of this animal being mistreated. So instead, we'll just euthanize it. Okay. So I guess really I just wanted to bring this up is that, make a plan for your animals.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that you can, unlike your couch, right? So your couch is property, your dog is property. You could not. It would violate the law. It would be you couldn't do it if you wanted to say put a provision in your will that says I leave $50,000 to my couch.
Yeah, you can't leave property to property.
Right. Yeah, property cannot inherit other property. That just it's not how that works. Interestingly enough, though, when it comes to pets, there is a separate statute, at least in Texas, that creates something called a pet trust, a way that you can leave property to property. You can leave money or other assets for the benefit of a dog, even though a dog is property under the law. And so, I wonder, let's just say that this lady had the same concern, right? Nobody's going to take care of Emma the way she took care of Emma. Well, but would they, if there was enough money involved?
Right. I guess the issue becomes, can you get over your fear First of all, I think it's it's a little wacky to be so fearful for the care of an animal that you would rather kill the animal than entrust the animal into the care of someone else. But
yeah, I mean, frankly, if it's that big a concern, maybe you should try to find a younger owner now.
Right.
Maybe having Emma was not the right thing for her in the first place.
But this comes up quite a bit. I was looking at the news, and the kind of the legal history, and they say that this comes up so frequently, and about half the time in these wills that say put the animals down, the judge gives the executor a waiver to not follow the testator's wishes in regard to putting the animals down.
Yep.
And there was a Canadian, so this happens all over the world. There was a Canadian that he had 4 horses, and in his will, he said when he dies, he wants each of the horses shot and disposed of. And in that case, the Canadian court granted a waiver and said that was improper to put down perfectly healthy animals for no good reason. But that's only half, John. So
right.
The other half, I'm sure there's some executors that don't go through the formal process of getting a waiver from the court and just place the animal, take the animal or place the animal somewhere else, and nobody knows the difference. Right. But then, if you have someone, your dying mother, who just adores this dog, that says, promise me, and I put it in my will, and you promise me you're going to do it because I want to go to the afterlife with my beloved Emma.
Yes, very Viking of you.
Yes. Then, when you make that promise on their deathbed, you may yourself feel a little strange about it, but yet you're honoring your promise to that now deceased person. So it's kind of a weird thing, but it actually comes up. So
yeah, it does come up, and it really,
if you're an animal person, you need to think about this stuff.
think through it a little bit, and when it does come to the animals, again, people have a tendency to get overly focused on death, but in both death or incapacity. You really need to be thinking through your pet ownership, especially if you're a single person and you're the only one that makes sure that animal gets fed. If you do have if you have a stroke at Walmart, and you then spend the next 3 months,
and you're flown to Dallas, Little Rock,
you spend the next 3 months floating around from hospital to hospital. Who's feeding that dog?
Yeah. So I know some folks carry a little card next to their medical insurance card that says, I have a house pet in my home that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah. Going all the way back to our very first comment on the powers of attorney, we talk about them being very specifically drafted. I've often included provisions in powers of attorney that give the agent not just but specific instructions for the care and management of any pets.
Right. Yeah.
That using the assets of the person includes using those assets for the benefit of animals that are dependent on that person. Because technically speaking,
you're not supposed to use assets on property.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not in the best interest of the principal.
Yeah, could be financial exploitation.
Yeah.
You would never even know it. So, all right. Well, we reached the end of another edition of Aging Insight. We appreciate everybody listening, and we will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
And goodbye to all of our Facebook friends. Y'all have a good one out there.
Bye.